Jeep Momma's top 5 suspension fails. No, 6.
So today we're gonna talk about the Jeep suspension.
My Jeep wasn't going down the road straight, so I started looking into it. You know, sometimes you feel wobbles and wiggles and pulls and pushing and clanks, and you may wonder what's going on. I'm going to try to give you some clues here to figure out what all that means. Top 5 Jeep suspension fails. No, 6.
I think the number one thing for me that I found was the wheel bearing, which is the hub assembly, because that really messed up my tires.
You can tell a wheel bearing has failed by the awful noise it makes, like a grinding sound. The stock bearing is meant for smaller tires. It will do the job with bigger tires, like my 35-inch tires, but the question is, how long before they fail? Keep an eye on your tire wear. Some tread wear can tell you you have an issue. These were my Nexen tires. There was uneven wear on one tire and cupping, uneven, scooped patches of worn tread on another tire. Both of those bad tire wear told me I had issues in my suspension.
Ball joints. So mine went bad as well. I had to replace my ball joint.
Ball joints are attached to the C-clip, which is attached to the axle. You have lower and upper ball joints.
So those go bad as well. Number 3, I'm going to say the tie rod ends.
It may not always be a bad tie rod end. Look for movement. If there's movement, then you have a bad tie rod end. Some of the ends you'll see the boot is cracked. You can call the company and get a replacement boot sometimes. I had to do that with my Yeti steering. You don't need to replace the whole tie rod end if you have a cracked boot.
Number 4 was the control arms.
The control arms link the frame to the suspension. The control arms do take a lot of beating when you are out on the rocks. One little ding can cause a pull.
Mine looks a little banged up there from the rocks.
My control arms have taken a lot of abuse. Bad geometry is number 5. A professional alignment will show you have bad geometry. Once you add a lift or any other suspension parts, get a professional alignment done. Now some tips to check out your own Jeep at home. First, unload the entire suspension. Jack up both tires at the same time, but be safe about it. You're going to want to do a visual inspection. Look at all the boots for damage. Bright, shiny metal could mean something is rubbing or it was impacted hard. Check the steering stabilizer. Number 3, you're going to want to check your tires for movement out of the normal range. Get yourself a large pry bar and get the pry bar underneath the tire with a small block of wood and wiggle the tire up and down with the pry bar. If there is a bad ball joint, you will see play in the ball joint. And check the wheel bearings as well. You will see play when you move the tires up and down. And it's not unusual to see a little bit of movement, but when you see a lot of movement, you have an issue. Tip number 2, grab the tire at the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock position and move the tire back and forth. Any movement, it's your tie rod end. You're going to feel a clunk, clunk, clunk type movement. You can see the clunk movement on my driver's side tire. Pay close attention if you have this movement in your tie rod end, because the number 6 fail could be your steering knuckle. A common fail in the JKs when you upgrade your tires and steering components. The hole in the steering knuckle wallows out and gets bigger. Tip number 3, grab the tire at the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock position and move the tire back and forth. This is most likely your wheel bearing. My top 5 Jeep suspension fails.